Hello, my name's Ben.
And my name's Josh.
And welcome back to FPL Graduates and welcome back to another video. We're going to be going straight into our teams for the next FPL game week and telling you everything that we're planning on doing for our FPL teams.
Okay, so we're going to go into my team first. Had a decent week last week, 60 points, which was quite above average. So I think we're just outside the top 200k. So it's been a solid first 5 game weeks of the season to kick things off, which is nice. That is all despite having Andre Onana in goal, who has had a price decrease to 4.9 million, which is really frustrating, to be honest, because I feel like the clean sheets will come eventually. He's had some tough games to go. But United, they've got players coming back from injury. They've got some easier fixtures, especially the home fixtures as well. So I expect him to keep at least a clean sheet in the next 3. Obviously, a lot of managers will be looking to wildcard game week 8 to 9 when there is that international break. So I feel like he should be able to get some points in between there. Obviously, he let that howler in against Bayern Munich. But after that, he made 5 saves. And I thought he looked quite reassured of himself. Obviously, came out after the game and was quite a leader in terms of sort of taking the blame in that regard. So I think he'll come good eventually. But for the start of the season, in hindsight, Brighton, Spurs, and Arsenal. Obviously, we didn't know that Spurs were going to play as well as they have done this season, but probably not the best goalkeeper pick off the bat. What's your thoughts on Onana so far this season, Ben?
Yeah, I think we've seen some keepers come out and sort of show better value. You got lots of Flecken that's shown sort of a bit better value, and maybe some more of the other 4.5s. But it's a case of, United haven't played too well. They've had a lot of injuries, and you can't foresee injuries in an FPL season. So it is quite difficult. I think like the base of Onana as an FPL asset, the point still stands in that he is a good asset with a full defence, and there's time in the season for him to improve. But like I said, with the form at the moment of Manchester United, the injuries, you could see on a wild card why you'd maybe look to bring him out.
Yeah, 100%. And then in the defence, as you can see, Botman, Sheffield United away. A lot of managers looking to bring him in this week. Obviously, the cheapest Newcastle defender that is starting at the moment. So obviously, it should hopefully play against Sheffield United. Obviously, we don't know how Europe affects this Newcastle team yet. It's a bit of an unknown quantity. So we'll have to wait and see if Eddie Howe sort of rotates. I don't think he will, but it's something to be aware of for sure. Obviously, Estupiñán, Bournemouth at home, he will probably play this week. The only reason he didn't play against Manchester United is because the Ecuador team got back late into the UK. That's why we didn't see Caicedo for Chelsea, for example. Kabore is the final defender as well. Wolves at home. He's there on fixture basis alone. I do have 2 free transfers this week. So I'm just deciding what I want to do. But yeah, Luton, obviously, they're not great, don't get me wrong, but Wolves equally are not great. So we'll have to wait and see how that one unfolds. What's your thoughts on that back 3, Ben? Are you is there anyone, obviously, Kabore potentially that you'd change?
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at Kabore and I'm looking at Wolves, and Wolves aren't as bad sort of going forwards as they were last season. Like their numbers are going forwards offensively have definitely improved, and that's off the back of sort of some good performances from the likes of Pedro Neto, and etc. So I'd maybe be a little bit more tempted to drop Kabore for another player. And of course, if you've got those free transfers there, you're probably not looking at transferring someone like him out if you've got a double game week for him. But I'd say it's likely that you may end up by the game week start and benching him, just because, Wolves at home, it does look a good fixture on the face of it, but a team defensively like Luton who've conceded quite a lot of XG so far this year, I'd maybe steer clear of it just for this week, and maybe reassess for the double game week.
Yeah, definitely agree with that one. And then moving on into midfield, we got the 5-man, as always. Saka, Tottenham at home. It's going to be a lovely game, that. I can't wait to watch it. 2 teams that are on really good form at the moment. Obviously, he scored a goal and got an assist in the Champions League this week. Looked really good. Arsenal in general looked really good. So promising signs there. Sterling with Villa at home. Again, another interesting game there. Sterling, I feel, has played quite well, just sort of avoided FPL returns. Not sure how he didn't return against Bournemouth last week, hitting the bar, hitting the line, all sorts going on there. Eze, again, probably the last week I'll probably have in my team. Fulham at home. It's just a fixture that I can't pass up. They've conceded the most XG this season defensively. And I think, why would I want to sell a talismanic figure on penalties against that sort of defence? I just don't want to sell him at the moment. And I think, although he's only returned 1 game week out of 5 so far this season, he, for me, has looked promising, similar to Sterling, I guess. Like these guys look like they're going to get returns. So it's going to be interesting to see for sure. And then Bruno Fernandes, Burnley away. United, obviously, 4-3 defeat in midweek. I thought he looked decent in that game. I think Bruno against those lower opposition is always a good asset to own as well. So it'll be interesting to see how United sort of line up, because we saw Palestri in midweek. We saw that diamond at the weekend. So it'll be interesting to see how Ten Hag sort of sets up for that game. And then obviously Salah at home to West Ham at Anfield. I think there'll be points again. Hopefully, 6th return out of 6 game weeks. Ben, is there anyone there that you think I need to be changing for this game week, or do you think it's sort of like a solid base at the moment?
Yeah, it looks like a solid base and foundation for this week in terms of FPL assets. I mean, you're looking at Eze Fulham at home is a nice fixture. Villa at home is perceived as a nice fixture as well, even if Chelsea aren't sort of converting the amount of sort of XG and chance that they're creating. It's interesting. Obviously, no Spurs player in here as of yet, and I think that's a sensible call, to be honest. If you've not got any of the Spurs midfielders at the moment, and even if you do own it, it's very tempting with the fixtures that we got this week. Some quite nice ones in there to sort of maybe substitute and bench one of those this week. But yeah, nothing that I'd really say is a standout for changing in this midfield. It looks pretty good to go.
Yeah, obviously, I was speaking to Sim, FPL Sim. If you don't know him, he's on TikTok, and he said obviously I had no Spurs midfielders in there from last week. Obviously, everyone went to Son, Maddison against Sheffield United. Obviously, I got to rode my luck a little bit in that game. But I think for the next two, they will score points. But for me, if you're in my position and you don't have them, I wouldn't say they're necessarily a straight up buy right now. Obviously, they've got Arsenal this week, and then I think they have Liverpool the week after. So there's points to be had there if you do own them, but I don't think definitely not a purchase right now. Moving on to the forward line, Julian Alvarez and Haaland. Alvarez I transferred in 2 weeks ago, scored 23 points in 2 game weeks. That is an absolute transfer and a half. Absolutely unreal form at the minute. Scored twice midweek for City against Red Star Belgrade. He looks absolutely incredible. And obviously Haaland sort of getting outperformed by him, having loads of chances himself, just not being able to finish them, which is probably the first time we've actually ever said that about Erling Haaland at the minute. What's your thoughts on Alvarez, Ben? He's a massive talking point this week. Obviously, Jackson to Alvarez, scoring goals for fun. What's your thoughts on him?
Yeah, I mean, it's like he's in great form, and I think he's as close to sort of the informed player in the league right now in terms of his performances, and it's only helped by the fact that Grealish could be out for another 7 to 10 days. Bernardo Silva picked up an injury midweek. Like De Bruyne is a long-term absentee anyway. So it's all pointing to Alvarez starting this week. Pep's mentioned that he's almost undroppable at this point. We know what happened last time. Someone said that. He said that about Ake and he got benched 3 games in a row. But I think it's a little bit different with Alvarez because he is showing a clear importance to the team. Nottingham Forest home is a great fixture as well. And we should know, if you haven't got Alvarez before the deadline, who's starting for Manchester City as well, which is another key point to add.
Yeah, obviously the first kickoff this week's a 3 o'clocker. I think there's 3 or 4 of them, so we should get early team news on quite a few teams potentially this week. So keep an eye on the rest of our socials for that. And then on the bench, we do have Turner, obviously probably waiting for Vlachodimos to come into the team there. Adoji, Arsenal away. He for me, if you're wildcarding in gaming 8 to 9, you could easily sell him this week because he's got Arsenal away, I think Liverpool at home, and then obviously the Luton fixture, which is decent, but I don't know if it's worth keeping on your bench for 2 weeks if you are looking to wildcard. So if you're in a position stuck for transfers, he could be a guy to potentially move on if you don't hold a lot of value in him. And then obviously Levi Colwill, he's another player that I could potentially start ahead of Kabore. I just think Chelsea will concede in that game as well. So it's just who will concede less. And at the minute, I'm actually thinking Luton might concede less than Chelsea right now, especially against that Villa team. Obviously, Villa have rested all of their key assets in midweek as well. So it should be a pretty strong Aston Villa side that goes to Stamford Bridge. And then obviously Mubama to wrap things up, who's not seen a minute of football so far this season. Obviously, Ben, 2 free transfers to use. What would you be doing with this team?
You're looking in a pretty strong position at the moment in terms of transfers. And honestly, I'd be pretty stuck on who to transfer. I'd honestly be tempted to look at like with your position, a keeper transfer, like either that or Mubama to Archer. Like I don't think there's anything too drastic that you actually need to do to your team this week to make it ready to go. The only thing I could think of potentially is if you wanted sort of to move off that Chelsea defence, you could do so this week and sort of move to to maybe a double up of the Newcastle defence, or you could go sort of for another defence that has sort of decent fixtures going forwards. But for me, there's not too much that I'd do with this team, and with the position that you're in, with the transfers and the money in bank you got, I think it's looking like a really strong position for you this week.
Yeah, it definitely is. And one thing that's come to my mind right now is that it's so strong right now that game week 8 to 9 wildcard might not even be the play right now, because this team probably, I was doing it earlier, maybe 5 or 6 moves away from what my wildcard team would look like. And that's including transfers like Turner to Areola, Mubama to Archer, transfers like that. So I don't think we're too far off of wildcards that I would be moving to. So it'll be interesting to see what Ben's team looks like. And he'll be going into that now.
Okay, so moving into my team, this is how I'm looking set up for this week. At the moment, I've got 2 free transfers here to play with, and a little bit of money in the bank as well. So to start off in goal, we have got Andre Onana. Josh touched on, he hasn't had the best start of the season from an FPL perspective, but with the way that my team's set up, I just don't think I can justify making any keeper transfers anytime soon. So he's going to have to stay in for now. Burnley away is not a bad fixture, as Josh mentioned, so I think I'll be all right with owning him for this week. I've got 3 Manchester United assets, so it's not ideal because they're not in great form, but I'm going to ride it out with the fixtures that Manchester United have got. In defence, again, there's Chilwell in there, which is a slight minutes risk now, just due to the fact that Mudryk obviously started last week. We see Colwill converting into a left-back role. I'm not sure how much we're going to see of that, but he did mention against the easier teams that he might revert to that. I do still think Chilwell's an important member of the Chelsea squad, and I do think that he is going to get a lot of minutes going forwards. It's just interesting to see that 1 week in a while, he may potentially throw a curveball like this. We'll have to see what Chilwell does this week, whether he plays, because if he has another game where he doesn't get sort of the start, it may be looking to move him on, unfortunately, as high as his ceiling may be. Ruben Dias as well in the defence. I've been pretty disappointed since I brought him in. I haven't got a clean sheet from him yet. It's been 2-point ceilings at the moment for him, but Nottingham Forest home presents a decent opportunity for a clean sheet, albeit, you got a Wanyi, Gibbs-White, Hudson-Odoi, Alanga in that Nottingham Forest team. They are a dangerous outfit, and I'd be wary of them if you're looking to bring in any City defenders this week. Hopefully he starts, and like I said, we may get City team news before the deadline. And then to round off the defence, Estepinian in there as well. I mean, it's pretty standard. I've held on to him. It's a decent fixture from here. Next week onwards, it might be a little bit more difficult to justify starting him, but that is the back 4. Josh, what are your initial thoughts?
Yeah, I'll just touch on the guys that we haven't spoken about already. Like Chilwell must be really frustrating as an owner, because he's obviously had the good start to the season and it's just gradually declined a little bit over the weeks. Obviously, minutes risk is not ideal with him, especially, we thought it was injuries in the past, and now he's potentially not being picked because he's playing in a different position than a lot of people thought, sort of playing that left mid position. It'll be interesting against Villa, because I think Villa's a different sort of fixture. You alluded to the easier teams. I think Villa will probably play in their back 3 sort of system with Matty Cash and Digne as the wing backs. So it'll be interesting to see if Poch sort of matches that, or if he just plays his own game and sort of plays that 4-3-3 that we saw in against Bournemouth. So yeah, for me, if I owned him this week, he's close to a sell, but I'd probably wait 1 more week and just see, just because his ceiling's so high. And like, if he does start, you could be looking at a lot of FPL points. With the City defence, it's sort of one of those things that we saw it last season, that they just kept conceding 1 goal every single game. They wouldn't concede more than 1, but they just kept conceding 1. Obviously, the start of the season, they played well and didn't concede many at all. And then it sort of lured a lot of managers in and sort of gone, they're conceding again now. So I think, it's a difficult one. For me, Ruben Dias just doesn't justify 5.5 million when you're going to get no attacking threat out of him. And the clean sheets there are just so risky. So, for me, I'd be avoiding City defence, especially against the Forest side, who is scoring every single game at the moment.
So moving on into my current midfield that we've got. We have got James Maddison in there first, Arsenal away, and traditionally North London derbies, it provides lots of action, lots of goals and lots of yellow cards as well. I'm almost tempted to bench Maddison this week, though, just because Arsenal away is probably the toughest fixture that any of my midfielders has. And if I've got 2 free transfers, it might be him that makes way for one of my new transfers in. In the midfield as well, we've got a double up of the Manchester United midfielders, Marcus Rashford and Bruno Fernandes. And for me, they're a hold for now just because their attacking statistics look quite decent. The fixtures look good enough as well. It's possibly maybe one last chance for one of these guys, but I do back them for some returns over the coming weeks, despite the fragilities that they've shown at the start of the season. I think the fixtures can breed form, and hopefully that's what it does with these guys. They obviously both got a return in midweek against Bayern Munich, and that is no mean feat to do that. Then we got Mitoma, Bournemouth at home. I've held him for this fixture. Potentially could move him off by next week. I'm hoping Brighton do play well. And Mitoma's been one of the sort of most consistent players in the team. Obviously, he didn't get much against Manchester United, but previous to that, in other game weeks, he's been very consistent as well. And then Bukayo Saka, of course, in the team, he had a little bit of a rest coming off early in midweek as well, off the back of a goal and assist. And he's the main man at Arsenal at the moment alongside Odegaard. So I'd back him to start every time. Josh, that's midfield. Initial thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I think Maddison's an interesting one because obviously he's been so instrumental to how Spurs play, and I think Spurs will give Arsenal a good game at the Emirates. I don't think, like Ange has just said, shown that he's just not going to back down in any game. They're off a massive high of that comeback win against Sheffield United as well. So I think for me, I wouldn't be selling him this week unless there was someone who I really, really wanted. Because I feel like the fixture after that at Liverpool away, I think Liverpool at home, is a fixture that I can see them scoring. You know, Liverpool have conceded to Lask in midweek. So they're conceding goals left, right, and centre. So for me, I wouldn't be so keen on selling him. Mitoma, though, he's similar to a Estupiñán. You play him this week and probably look to offload the week after potentially. Brighton's attacking assets aren't too much of an issue because they just score goals for fun under De Zerbi. Such a good manager. It'll be interesting to see sort of the minutes of how they sort of all play, especially with Europa League this season as well.
Okay, and moving on into the current attack of this team, we've got Haaland, of course, on the captaincy. Not too much to say about him. We've also currently got Nicholas Jackson. Now, I decided to show the bench at the same time as well, so I can start talking through my potential transfer plans for this week. As we know, Rico Henry's unfortunately out with an ACL injury for the season, so he won't be playing again, possibly till next season, which is really unfortunate. So the plan is potentially to move him on to someone like Sven Botman of Newcastle. I think the fixtures run that they got coming up is too good to ignore despite European rotation. But again, I don't expect too much rotation between the defence and indeed through the centre-backs. I think that's crucial to how they play. I don't think Eddie Howe's going to change that up too much. And the other transfer is potentially going to be Nicholas Jackson for Julian Alvarez. I think I may as well just start getting in the players that are in form rather than the ones that are not scoring at all. It is a slight risk by doing so because Nicholas Jackson's attacking numbers have been decent without the goals. So that's the initial transfer plan. Josh, what's the thought on the attacking lineup and the potential moves to change that?
Yeah, Sven Botman's the obvious one. Obviously, he's going to be super high owned come in a couple of weeks' time. They've got some really good fixtures coming up. So yeah, easy sideways sort of transfer there, not using too much budget. Jackson is a really hard one because I think everyone's going to be hopping on Alvarez and thinking, oh, this guy's going to bag me like 2-3 returns. But it's not going to be like that. Like we see it so many times throughout a season where a player's in form, everyone sort of hops on him a little bit, not late, but towards the end of maybe his form. And then they'll sell someone who goes and scores. But Jackson, for me, if I owned him, it's such a tough decision to make because he, like you say, he gets in the positions. He should score goals. It's just that he's not been scoring goals, which is a massive problem right now. And I think that goes for Chelsea assets in general. So it's just whether you think that long term, the decision will be worth it paying off. Obviously, Chelsea's fixtures aren't that great like going forward either. So it's a tough one. I don't want to make a decision on it, so I'm glad you have to.
It is a tough one, and I'll probably look to sell. I'm more convinced to sell just because he's on 4 yellow cards as well.
Yeah, that's a big thing. Yeah,
and that's a big thing for me. I can't really afford, in the position that I'm in right now in terms of my FPL overall rank, can't really afford to have to then make 2 transfers this week and not bring Jackson out, and then he gets a yellow card within the next few games. I mean, he's got quite a lot of games to get through before the yellow card sort of thing comes out. So he's 1 yellow card away. He's got many games to play before potential suspension. So I think at this point that factor in itself probably makes the decision a little bit easier for me to make.
Yeah, really good point. And in that regard, it's an easier sell, isn't it? Because he's going to be he probably will get suspended this week. He just loves an argument. So Alvarez coming in.
I mean, all 4 of his yellows have been for dissent, so it just screams of him doing it again, doesn't it?
Okay, so they are our game week 6 team reveals. Obviously, Ben's giving you more insight into his transfers than me. I'm just in a sticky situation right now of where to use my transfers. Obviously, if you want to know, make sure you follow us on Instagram and Twitter. We always discuss our transfers over there. And yeah, the Patreon, our team reveals are live before the deadline. So if you want the exclusive news, go over there, check it out. It's a good community.
And as always, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe to the FPL Graduates. And as always, I've been Ben.
I've been Josh.
We'll see you guys
later. Have a good game week, everyone.